Greetings, everyone. I'm Paulo Yusay, and I'm here to talk about exercise adherence. Let us first define exercise adherence. According to the World Health Organization, exercise adherence is the extent to which a person's behavior corresponds to the recommendations of a healthcare provider. The general idea being how much you follow your training, diet, therapy, medication, etc. Like all the topics my group will talk about, this process is dependent on mental strength. Without mental strength, sticking to the exercise regimen or following a specific diet for the long term will be very difficult and will eventually lead to the person forgetting, not caring, or ignoring their original plans or the plans of the health expert. There are multiple ways of keeping good exercise adherence. I will now talk about three examples. The first way to have good exercise adherence is to keep it simple at first and work your way up to more difficult tasks. If, for example, a person starts with a hard exercise that has strain on the body, or they feel is tedious and takes up too much time, their mindset will be inclined to think of the exercise as a negative thing and will eventually give up on it. If you start off with something simple and slowly work your way up to more difficult tasks, you will be able to have a positive mindset about the exercise and keep it up until the end where it becomes a task that fits properly into your schedule. A second way to have good exercise adherence is to have a schedule. A schedule will properly remind you when to specifically do a task. If, for example, you choose to exercise without having a specific schedule, you may think of delaying it a bit in order to give yourself more time not doing the exercise, which may end up with you not having enough time and skipping the exercise altogether. A schedule will allow you to plan out ahead of time when you can do things so that it won't interfere with other tasks you do in your daily life. The third and final way of keeping good exercise adherence that I will talk about is setting multiple goals. With goals set, you will strive to keep sticking to the exercise that you are doing. With goals, you will be able to see how far you have gone and will feel a sense of achievement whenever you reach a goal and will gain the motivation to reach.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Fidelver, and I'll talk about anxiety and arousal in sports performance. First, let's talk about arousal. Arousal is a general physiological and psychological activation varying on a continuous series from deep sleep to excitement. Arousal refers to a state of activation and occurs in response to events, be they positive or negative in nature. Arousal is not automatically associated with either pleasant or unpleasant events. You might be highly aroused by learning that you have won a big amount of money, or you might be equally aroused by the death of a loved one. So, what does arousal do in our body? It is mediated by the nervous system and is about getting ready for action, and often causes an increase in heart rate and blood pressure, as well as heightened neural activity. It is often referred to as being in the zone or psyched up because it is about waking up your body so that it is ready to perform. There are two general concepts of arousal. First is low level of arousal. With this, you will have low motivation, inattention, and slow movement choices, while having high level of arousal will give you deterioration in coordination, inappropriate narrowing of attention, distractibility, and lack of response flexibility. But this is a vague and general concept levels of arousal. It changes for different sports. Example, a rugby player requires a high arousal level than an archer or gymnast. The rugby player will not perform as well if their arousal is not high enough, or is it too high. This is the same for the archer. If their arousal levels are too high or low, they will not perform as well. That is to say, there's a specific optimal arousal level, which is specific to each sport. The more difficult the skill, like handstand, the lower the level of arousal is needed, while the easier the skill, like catching a ball, the higher the level of arousal is needed. So now, let's go to anxiety. Anxiety is a psychological state in reaction to perceived stress concerning the performance of a task under pressure. It is also a common emotional state experienced by athletes at all levels of performance. Anxiety is commonly classified in two ways. First is trait anxiety. It refers to a characteristic of a person so that the person is generally anxious about unknown outcomes. It is a part of who the person is. Next is state anxiety. It refers to anxiety that arises in a particular situation. Everyone experiences state anxiety, but the stimulus can vary. In sports, state anxiety may arise when an athlete is in a high pressure situation and is called upon to perform. Example is serving for the match in tennis, converting a try in rugby, or shooting a free throw in basketball. Anxiety can also affect other parts of the body. For example, the heart can be affected, resulting in either a pounding heart or an irregular heartbeat. The player can also have headaches, insomnia, and fatigue. A certain level of stress in sports may be good, but if this goes too far, it may result in performance decline, like choking. Researchers and sports psychologists have studied the relationship among anxiety, arousal, and sport performance. And these are the four ideas they come up with. First, athletes who fear of failure experience a high level of anxiety. Next, athletes who have high levels of trait anxiety tends to experience high levels of state anxiety during the competition. Third, athletes' perception of a given situation influence their level of state anxiety. And when placed in the same competitive situation, athletes experience different levels of anxiety. And lastly, an optimal level of arousal is essential for peak performance. There are tips to enhance your performance during sports. First, use appropriate physical activity, develop and use a pre-competition routine, design practice situation to stimulate competition, tailor preparation to the individual, build self-confidence and high realistic expectations, help athletes keep errors in perspective, keep athletes focused on the present event, promote the positive self-talk, and lastly, incorporate relaxation training as necessary. Now, let's do a recap. Anxiety is often thought as an emotion, while arousal is thought of something that occurs as a result of psychological or physiological influences. And that's all for today. Thank you. I hope you learned something from me.
Hey guys, it's Lito again. Now I'll discuss to you what goal setting is. But before that, I'll discuss to you what the three types of goals are that we'll encounter in our lives. First is the short-term goals, in which the goals that we can achieve typically less than a year, and sometimes they are called the enabling goals because they enable us to achieve even greater goals for the future. And the next one is long-term goals, and these are the goals that usually consist of the goals we want to achieve for our lifestyle, career, and even our lifetime. The final goal is the lifetime goals, and this talks about the goals that you want to achieve over your lifetime. This can vary depending on your age, and this can take up to 10 or more years. Moving on to the next part of goal setting is learning how to do it. And I think that the first two steps are usually the hardest because these two steps are one, finding a goal that you want to achieve that you can see yourself doing in the near future, and the second one is committing yourself to that goal. This is usually easier said than done because along the journey you will encounter many problems, and it is up to you whether you give up or you continue. The final part of goal setting is knowing about the SMART principle. The SMART principle is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Specific is when your goal is actually clearly defined to you and you can clearly understand what your goal is about. Measurable is when you can keep track of the progress you have currently made. And achievable is when your goal is achievable and not impossible to reach. Realistic is when your goal is also realistic, also being relevant to your own life. Timely is when you can recognize when you started to reach for this goal and your expected end date for this goal. And that is all what we have for goal setting, and thank you.
But what is self talk? Self talk is your internal dialogue. It's influenced by your subconscious mind and it reveals your thoughts, beliefs, questions, and ideas. But how self talk helps us with our performance? Through supporting you regulate your feelings, thoughts, and energy about those events, effective use of self talk can enhance your performance. Positive self talk will help you feel confidence, enhance collaboration, manage cognitive skills, improve focus, and also perform better at endurance events. Positive self-talk companies have been able to focus and be more relaxed. Negative thoughts can trigger feelings of anxiety. Positive self-talk, on the other hand, creates happiness and excitement that leads to effective performance. And it is a process of which an individual may guide him, herself. The power of mental imagery. Negative thoughts cause negative reactions, and positive thoughts cause positive reactions. This is how mental imagery works. But how mental imagery enhance your performance? By simply doing it. Imagery is a way of increasing your arousal so that you really get up for a training or competition. But not only help to control the anxiety they experience during competitions, but also help athletes to remain optimistic, focused entirely, and mentally tough. It serves as a key with improving your performance by combining mental training with physical activity. Relaxing while thinking about the positive outcome is the way to do it. Close your eyes and be aware of your whole body from your head to your feet. Breathe in and breathe out in a slow, calm manner. When you are relaxed, your mind becomes more positive and accepting of your imagery. That's all. Thank you.